My name is Shon Bishop, and I'm partial owner-operator of Bishop Gardens, LLC. Bishop Gardens is a multi-generational family located in the Ozark Mountain Range. The township closest to us is Cassville, Missouri, the very, very southwest corner of the state of Missouri. We grow currently strawberries, and then we grow tomatoes. We also are looking at grafting tomato plants for sale to commercial producers, and we are putting in blackberries on an RCA trellis system literally as we speak. Grafting has been sort of a unique thing that we've watched over the years, and we've really thought about how hard is this? How expensive is it really for us to get into? And is this something that we could add as an enterprise to our already existing family-owned and operated farming operation? We wrote a grant, and it was awarded to us, and now what we're doing is looking at the economics. Can it actually make money? Does it pay for itself? Or like most of farming has been for us at least, is it more of a labor of love? And so what we're going to do over the course of this grant is try to answer those questions. The first place that we'd like to talk to you about or focus on with you when you're thinking about grafting tomato plants on your farm is seed. Seed is extremely important. We buy the highest quality seed that we can possibly afford because we want to start off with the appropriate product. Also, it's a very good idea when you're propagating seeds to have maybe an automatic watering system in case you have other duties or other jobs. We do not farm full-time. We have other streams of income, so I am not always here. My wife works full-time. She is not always here. We don't always have the ability to be able to go in and make sure that the seeds that we are propagating have adequate water throughout the day. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to take care of that. And so a good watering system that is automatic, that mists, that is appropriate for very young transplants, that's absolutely what I would recommend that you look into and invest into, quite frankly. Secondly, we start in ribbon flats and we go into 50 cell pack. Okay, the reason why we go into 50 cell packs is because it makes math extremely easy. The healing chamber that you see just right beside me here, we'll talk about that in a little bit in the construction of it and what all we put into it. But the point is that this is very valuable real estate. And if we stayed in 4 packs or 6 packs, it wouldn't pay. Those things are too big. We couldn't fit very many plants into healing chambers, again, which are very valuable square footage. So we want to make sure that we're putting in as much as we can, but we felt like the 100 and the 72s were just too much to actually handle. Plus, you'd have to pay attention to math then, and as a horticulturalist, we're very bad at math. Additionally, when talking about seed propagation, we really want to focus on keeping the area where we're starting our seeds, and whether that's in your house or it is actually in a greenhouse space, a seed starting house like we have. What you can do is we make sure that nighttime temperatures hover around that 64, 65 degrees, but we're putting our plants on heat mats. And we're keeping that soil, in the mid to upper 70s is what we're trying to do. The literature that I have says to keep it a little bit higher than that, but we've had luck with that. We haven't had anything necessarily bad happen because of those. And with the prices of propane, which is our primary source of heat, which is something to consider, It's extremely expensive to keep the tunnel that warm, especially through the January, February timeframe, which is going to be your primary season for starting grafting and healing plants for your commercial markets. When we talk about seed propagation, we're thinking about the time length that it takes for seeds to actually begin to grow. We have the start, the cotyledons to the first true leaf, and transplanting them up. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as you kind of plan throughout your season and how many you're going to be growing, counting your seed out individually, making sure that you have what you need, and then going from the ribbon flats like we start in on the heat mat. We can make sure that as we fill the 50 flats up, we have a 100% stand, because if somebody orders 100 tomato plants for us, you need to show up with 100 tomatoes. That's been something that's really saved us a lot of headache throughout the seasons. Scheduling is one of the most challenging parts of grafting plants. You know, we've all, I'm sure most of us that's watching this, you've started your own plants, right? And you've started plants perhaps for others as well. Well, there's a simplicity in that, because it doesn't necessarily matter if you have sort of, if you have differences in growth rates within the same seed lot, because they're all going to go into the field anyway. So if you have some tomatoes that's bigger, some peppers that's bigger, out of the same seed package, what does that matter? It's going to go right into the field. Where it does matter when you're talking about grafting. A couple of the things that brings up, and we'll talk about that in later modules together, but what we're doing is we're making sure that 8 weeks from the date of delivery, we have everything squared away. We have enough bench space in our greenhouse. Our healing chambers are going to have space in them that is open. We have enough clips. We have enough time to do it, and then we have enough propane to bring through those plants that they need to be healed before they go out into the field. And so scheduling, it's very difficult. What we have found over the seasons that we have done this now is once you plant, you're going to be transplanting from ribbon flats into cells. The 50 cell inserts is again what we use here on the farm. You're going to be looking between 5 to 7 days, and you're going to be putting them into 50 flats. Okay, and then from there you're going to be waiting roughly 20 to 25, maybe even as late as 30 days, depending on how gray that it is. So you need to keep in mind that you're planting 2 months ahead. So you've got commercial producers that they're planting in March. So, do the math and keep that in mind. It helps. We have an Excel spreadsheet sort of on our personal computer that we're using to try to keep track of all of this. Secondly, what we've noticed is the commercial market's a lot earlier and it uses a lot more propane, okay? The homeowners market, we're selling into individuals that are buying determinate plants or determinate-like plants, sort of a bush type. Even though they're indeterminate, they have a really small footprint. We're growing them and we're selling them to homeowners, and what we're doing at that particular point is we're trying to make them available the last 2 weeks of April through the middle of May. Okay, because here with our zip at our latitude, April 15th is the frost-free date, and nobody believes that for a second. It's actually Mother's Day. That's the true frost-free date where we're at. And so that's great if somebody wants to buy some early tomatoes from you and then they're going to die and then they'll come back in and they'll buy some more. I guess that's a great business model, but that's when you really want to begin to have these type of plants. And so aiming at 2 different markets, we're looking at the commercial producers, which take a lot of resources because, number one, they order large quantity. Number 2, we're putting this together in the time of year where it's very cold and very gray. Because a lot of times January and February in Southwest Missouri, we just have constant cloud cover. And while we do have additional grow lights because of that issue, they don't grow in the same way that the sunlight will do for you, okay? So when you're putting your plants out, you're planting 20 to 25 days before you're actually taking them into graft. We wanted to focus specifically on one of these sort of educational pieces and talking about grafting. So there's just a couple of things that I wish I would have known before I started that I've learned at School of Hard Knocks and with the infinite patience of Dr. Kara Rivard, KSU, who has been so wonderful throughout this whole process. If you have any grafting concerns or questions, he's really the guy to go to. Dr. Rivard has been just absolutely wonderful and helpful throughout the project for us. But first and foremost, we have the ribbon flats into the 50 cell flats, and then we're going to grow those out for about 20 to 25 days. Honestly, that's about what we're averaging. And yes, there is that much variance. But what we're doing is that allows us to get to a size where we can use 1.7 to 2.0 millimeter grafting tubes, okay? The particular method that we're using for the grafting is called a top grafting, a tube grafting is what it's referred to in the industry. And we have these little bitty silicone tubes that are just lovely. They go around the plant, and then they actually just pop off as the plant continues to heal, and the stem diameter gets big enough it just falls off, and then you can collect them, boil them, and you can reuse them actually. So what that does is that allows us to get to a point for those day lengths, the temperatures that we're holding our seed house. It allows us to be able to graft the plants, and they're not so small that you're scared to death that you're going to crush the stems, the apical meristem, or when you're putting them together, you're actually going to damage that beyond repair. But it's light enough, it's little enough that you still need to do a little bit of leaf removal, a little bit, about 30%, something like that. And it's light enough it actually stands itself up when we connect the two pieces in the tube. So we tried waiting a little while with the first season that we had of this, and that was just, would not recommend that at all. We like them when they're smaller. They heal faster when they're smaller. It feels like that they just perform better when they're smaller. Maybe a little bit more finicky in the actual healing chamber, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is a support stick that you can get. It is exactly a coffee stir, like a little coffee stir stick that you have at hotels and gas stations. That's what this is. Don't waste your money on that. Just grab a handful from your local gas station. It'll be fine. But you don't have to use these if you have those younger plants. They can support themselves. And so with all the time that you're touching this, every single step you're trying to figure out, is this going to be economic? That's part of this grant, right? Is this going to be economic? And so the least amount of things that you have to do to each plant, the faster that you are, the more money that you're going to be able to turn as profit, okay? So we like that range of that 20 to 25, even as late as 28, depending on sort of if we have a really gray February, let's say, and a really cold one, they'll be slower growing, and that's okay. Healing chamber. This one's the difficult one, quite frankly. There's a lot of things that you can do on the back end. You're going to get, many of you that are going to be watching this and interested in this, you're already starting your seeds for your farms. You're experts at that. You're better than I am at that. But this has been different. This healing chamber has been different. What we have found to be true is that, we're in a shop. This is a climate controlled environment. I have a window behind me. There's another window over here that you can't see, a window right behind you, right behind the camera that you can't see. So there is a little natural light, but there's not a lot. And so we installed LED lights actually in here, which is what's on right now. And for the first 2 to 3 days, we have this healing chamber covered with a 100% shade cloth, or 250% shade cloths is how we're doing it. Right, you can buy that on Amazon for really cheap. The littler ones, of course, work for these littler healing chambers. And after that particular time, we're just sliding that off. We're turning these shop lights on, and that's what's going to begin the healing process. At least that's what we have found to be the case. So we've got from the actual grafting table, which is right here in front of us, we go from here, all climate controlled, into there, okay? We already have humidity in there when we put our grafted plants in that particular healing chamber. And so they sit in there for 2 days in dark, and then we uncover and we introduce light, slowly at first through the natural windows, okay? And then the big lights in the shop come on and they stay on. Roughly 5 to 8 days is what we're finding, talking to everybody about the average for healing, that they stay in here. Now, this is a cool mist humidifier that you can buy off of the internet or your favorite box store, okay? And it has just a knob that just sort of turns up and down the humidity. As you go throughout the healing process, we started cranked all the way up for those couple of days in darkness, right? Just with the shade cloth up and over. And then we begin to creep that down to where there's just a nice light sort of fog in there where you can clearly see the plants, they can clearly see the lights, but we're keeping that on until that point. The end of the process, what we're doing is we're opening up that plastic and exposing them to the humidity that's in the shop here, which is relatively low actually. Right now, we're in the low 30s as far as percentage for humidity goes. From here, after we harden off for 1 or 2 more days, they're going to go back out into the seed house. On the bench, they sit underneath a 50% shade cloth. Sometimes we have to add a little bit more shade cloth depending on how sunny that it is at this time of the year. It just really depends upon the season. But what's important is your plants are going to tell you whether they're happy or not. What I mean by that is they're going to wilt, right? A little bit of wilting's okay. That's just fine. What you're trying to watch for is the center of the particular plants, right, where you have the rootstock, you have the scion that come together. If that actual scion itself begins to bend over, that's bad, okay? If that middle part, the actual stem, still is standing straight, but all of the leaves on the side are kind of droopy, that's fine. Be patient, give it a couple days, and then what you're going to be doing is you're going to get them out of the shade cloth area and onto the actual greenhouse bench where you'll continue to grow that. You have put a lot of work into these plants up until this point. It would be a shame for you to rush this, be patient, because you can kill your plants right here. This project has been made possible by the Missouri Department of Agriculture's Specialty Crop Block Grants program. It was awarded to the Nichols-Richardson Trust and is in collaboration with the University of Missouri and Lincoln University Cooperative Extension. For more information, please visit the Webb City Farmers Market's website, webcityfarmersmarket.com. Thank you very much for your time and for being with us today. We hope to see you soon.